Now, the big news of the day is we've got Andy Burnham as Prime Minister, but every politics channel will be covering that, so let me know down in the comments if you want me to as well. But in the meantime, Nigel Farage resigned as an MP so that he can become an MP. It will cost you, the taxpayer, roughly around £275,000, and is spending it on a question he wants the people of Clacton to answer. Is he guilty or not? You be the judge, he says. It's a lovely bit of theatre. There's just one small problem, and the problem is Nigel Farage. Yes, exactly him. Nigel Farage in May of 2016 said on the record in the Mirror, answering this exact question about rerunning votes, you don't fancy the result of. Now we'll get to that quote, and it takes this whole by-election apart. But first, let's enjoy the speech itself, because it starts lying in the opening 4 seconds.
I never ever intended to be in politics.
Didn't intend to be in politics. Okay, same speech, just 20 seconds later.
I've spent the best part of 3 decades in and out of elected politics, but always fighting a British establishment that I never thought had the guts to stand up, frankly, for the national interest or its people.
3 decades. The man's been in politics longer than some of his voters have been alive. Entirely by accident, like a bloke who tripped into 1993 and fell into the European Parliament. And he retired from it. Remember?
But 2 years ago, after Brexit had happened and I'd retired from politics, I decided I've just got to come back.
Which, by my count, is at least his 3rd retirement, making Nigel Farage the Frank Sinatra of British politics. If, like, Sinatra had come back each time just to complain about the venue. Anyway, the actual news. Farage is under investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner over the £5 million gift from Christopher Harborne. If you haven't heard about this and you have no idea about it, just go and watch one of the videos on the channel. There's loads on it. All right, I'm not repeating myself. So, rather than wait for the Commissioner's verdict, he resigned on the 7th of July and called a by-election on himself. His framing was this.
And so I've decided, rather than being judged by the political class and mainstream media, I'm going to let you, the voters in the Clacton constituency, make a decision. I want you to be my judge, not the Westminster elites. You decide whether I'm guilty or not.
The people as his judge, a vote to settle it once and for all. Now, would anyone like to hear Nigel Farage's actual documented position on people who face losing a vote and demand another go? Yeah, May 2016, 5 weeks before the referendum, when the polls suggested he might lose it narrowly, he told the Mirror, and I quote, "In a 52-48 referendum, this would be unfinished business by a long way. Pressure would grow for a rerun," he said. Then the vote landed 52-48 his way, and suddenly it's the will of the people, and it's sacred, eternal, carved into stone tablets somewhere above Dover. By 2019, he was telling us the Brexit Party existed to stop the public being insulted by made to vote again. So the complete Farage doctrine goes, lose narrowly, demand a rematch, win narrowly, settled forever. And if you're about to lose a standards investigation, skip the verdict and call the vote you're confident of winning instead. Votes count precisely when Nigel Farage wins them. He's spent 30 years calling everyone else anti-democratic and then just called a rerun on himself before the first result existed. And the rerun doesn't even do what he's implying it does. Resigning doesn't clear him. It pauses the investigation. Winning doesn't clear him either. The probe restarts the day he's sworn back in. Clacton is being asked for a verdict with no legal bearing on the charge, which will still be sitting there on the 14th of August like a parking ticket he tried to escape by driving into a different postcode. What the actual vote buys him is a delay, plus a mandate to wave at the Commissioner's ruling when it eventually arrives, a £250,000 press release dressed up as a courtroom, and Reform did offer to pay it for themselves, which sounds noble until you learn that buying your own election is, a little bit illegal. So, therefore, the bill is yours. All just for one man's tantrum. Speaking of persecution.
But I think the establishment realised they couldn't beat us by fair means, and so they've moved to foul means. Myself, my colleagues, all around me, coming under the sort of relentless attack, and often things being said, printed, broadcast that are simply untrue.
Relentless establishment attack. Hold that thought, because we're going to meet the establishment that he's up against shortly, and I promise you it's worth the wait. First, his defence, in his own words, and noticed how it's structured.
This is the people of Clacton against the establishment. My future is in your hands. It is completely your choice. In my defence, let me say this. Yes, I might have received a large sum of money, but surely in the wake of the death of the elderly Anne Widdecombe, you can see that I'm going to need money to protect myself for the rest of my life.
Now, this is pretty twisted, to be fair, because it involves Anne Widdecombe, who was found dead at her Dartmoor home earlier this month. A man's been arrested, counter-terrorism police are involved, and it's genuinely a horrible story. She was a friend and colleague for years, and I'm not scoring points off her death, but I am going to point at the calendar. That 5 million arrived before Farage became an MP in 2024. The tragedy he's citing as the reason he needed it happened 3 weeks ago. He's offering a justification that post-dates the money by 2 years. And whatever you think of the man, that's the argument of someone who knows the honest answer to why didn't you declare it and would rather hand you a different question. Then comes the minimisation.
What have I done? I've broken no law. I haven't underpaid taxes. I haven't misused public money. In fact, since becoming your MP, my personal expenses over the last 2 years are zero. No, my crime, according to the parliamentary authorities, is not to have filled in a form and made a declaration. And that's it.
There's 2 claims in there, and they're both doing more work than he realises. Just a form. The form in question is the Register of Members' Financial Interest. The one document that lets the public see who's paying their MP and therefore who their MP might be working for. And the expenses boast isn't the flex that he thinks it is. I mean, it's the same trick but from the opposite end. Expenses are the transparent part of the MP's money. Every claim published, every receipt published. Yes, some people get upset that MPs have all these expenses, but at least you can see where the money's going. His alleged offence is failing to declare the private money, the 5 million flowing in outside one system built to let you watch. So his proudest boast, translated, is that his entire operation runs on money that you have no window to, and the single form that would have opened the curtains is the one that he didn't fill in. Now he's asking Clacton to be his judge while sitting on all of this evidence. And for a preview of what invisible money looks like in practice, well, the BBC have unanswered questions about who really paid for the $885,000 Clacton house, heated swimming pool included. You know, it's officially owned by his partner, and I'm sure it's all fine. Right, so the establishment he's fighting, Labour, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems and the Greens have all refused to stand, declining, in Keir Starmer's words, to join a circus. So Farage's grand people versus the establishment showdown will be contested by a record 34 candidates, led by Count Binface, an intergalactic space warrior from the planet Sigma 9. Now, the shadow elite conspiracy that's persecuting Nigel Farage couldn't be bothered to show up, so the role will be played out by a comedian wearing a bin. Even Kevin Badenoch, a woman not historically famous for jokes, pointed out that if this really is the people versus the establishment, Binface might be the people's candidate. And here's the bit that should genuinely embarrass him. The bin actually has policies. Binface arrived with a pledge card for Clacton, hold regular surgeries, build at least one affordable house, rename HS2 to FFS1. I mean, they're silly obviously, but at least it's an offer. Now listen to Farage's closing pitch and try to find his offer to the Clacton people.
So please, you be the judge. Do you want to support me in this continuing political revolution against Labour and Conservative governments that have let us down so badly? Do you want change or not? Because that's why they're trying to take us out. They don't want change. They want everything to stay the same. And I would argue, actually, unless we get radical change, this country, frankly, is finished.
Do you want change? Change to what? There's immigration doomed in his speech, net zero doom. Britain is broken, the establishment coming to get him. Not one sentence what he would actually do for Clacton with the mandate he's demanding. The novelty candidate wrote a manifesto. The self-styled leader of a political revolution wrote a grievance list. When your policy offer is thinner than the man from Planet Sigma 9, the problem has stopped being the establishment. So on the 13th of August, Clacton votes, and he'll probably win. The bookies think so, although I hope not, because I've actually put a bet on for Count Binface. So I'll be quids in if that comes in. But remember, what the win actually gets him, though. It's an investigation resuming exactly where it left off, a £275,000 bill for the rest of us, and a precedent that any MP in trouble can just pause the standard system by throwing an election. You be the judge. Fine. But the judge gets to see the evidence, and the evidence lives on a declaration form he spent 2 years refusing to fill in. He doesn't want a judge, he wants a jury that isn't allowed in the room. So we'll be following this story all the way through until the by-election. If you haven't subscribed already and you want to follow along, please do so. If you are in a position where you can help support the channel, then memberships are open. Big thank you to all the latest members. I really do appreciate your support. Dan Hodges of the Mail, who I, again, don't really particularly like, but he actually called it right regarding the security and the 5 million, which you can see in the video that's on screen now. So go watch that next. Don't forget the like button, and I'll see you next time.